Gentlemen, it's another in the series of Senzan. There's a narrative being spewed out that South Africa is in flames. Hashtag Femicide Nation. So we want to go as gently as we can and navigate this sensitive topic and see Ubuti. Hashtag Senzan. We'll unpack the issue and find different topics that will help empower us so we can move the conversation forward so it doesn't just stay a conversation. As always, if you can just introduce yourselves, Shotuban Wenza.
Ulwazi Ntabela. I'm key account manager at Gagasi FM, working on the public sector business.
Okay. Makosi Wakoza, on air talent specialist to my left.
DJ Lab, on air talent.
Nzuzenhle Mkhabela, ngiyayisebenza.
Amen for it. Yeah. No, but Foti, I thank you for taking the time out to come and have this discussion. Now, we need to start the conversation with something that has been doing the rounds on social media when people have been reporting incidents of gender-based violence, femicide, abuse against women. And on Durban Survivors, your name popped up. There was an allegation that you also were involved in some sort of abuse. How did that affect you? In fact, what is the first thing that came to mind when you see the name DJ Lab, aka?
I think for me personally, ukuzazi kubalulekile, yabo. So and being clear on this into that you do out there in the world, it's key. It's very, very important. So it kind of it incisile with how I dealt with it, because it was news to me firstly, but in it was literally from a friend who we constantly, checking each other just on how we navigate life from a business point of view, from life itself, and how we treat our significant others, He's a sounding board. So when he called me to tell me I need to actually so my initial reaction was to tell him
Sure.
And then he sent me the screenshot and I literally remember looking for Photoshop errors on the actual image and there weren't any. And then I logged onto Twitter where I saw it. I laughed. That was my initial reaction. I literally laughed. So it's because it was ludicrous. Kumina, but somebody would go out and do that. I hadn't even read it. I saw my picture and it was, at that point it discredited the page for me because we, obviously another friend of mine, Mwandi, he put me onto it and said, hey, go check into Woods, people are popping up, and we were like, hey, cool, and some of the people that were popping up were known perpetrators. So they're serving time currently. That's a jail. You know what I mean?
For those.
For those things that have been spoken about, and so now to be pulled into that same space, it was funny for me. And my initial reaction was to these guys, the Babali page. I responded. I said, guys, make sure that you have a fact-checking mechanism before you post these things up. Because since and you've allowed people to poison the water.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? Because of whatever reason. It may have been somebody who was guilty and who threw somebody into that phrase so that it then gets discredited. Do you know what I mean? So for me it was disappointing in that something that was whistleblowing. There's people who show up there 5, 10, 15, 20 times on that page. So I think at that point you do definitely need to start looking at that situation. I popped up once and I think the tone of it lacked emotion. If anybody was to analyze that post, there was no emotion in it. It was weird. It was wrong how it was written. You can tell that somebody went onto the page website Gagasi, pulled my picture from there, and when they wrote my name, it was a cut and paste job. You understand? So it's izona zonke lezinto. But by the mere fact that the immediate thing is shock and terror and from a bank. And like I say, I call them all on that page after having responded to the guys and retweeted it. I don't know if it still stands. At that time, I was the only person who was responding directly to the page, like 2 posts. Do you know what I mean? Who was being accused? So I responded directly to it. I retweeted it, and I screen grabbed it, and I shared it on Facebook. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
So those were my reactions. So for me, it was a case of whoever's doing this, there's a certain amount of malice to it. I generally don't react to it, especially if it make bad. Do you know what I mean? I'll address it best way I can, cause and when you react to stuff, if you react badly, or guilt. If you don't react and you're quiet, or guilt, value as. Do you know what I mean? So mine was to be as neutral to the whole situation as possible, and just ask people to fact check. And everybody who was commenting after me was irritated by me laughing at the post. And my question was, must I now be upset by a lie from an anonymous person on an anonymous person's page? Do you know what I mean? Like who do I direct my outrage at?
Okay, pause you there for a second.
Yeah.
So you said your initial reaction was laughter, which I guess in some sense you're saying it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
And you contacted people close to you to say, look, messenger.
Yeah.
Talk to me about your close circle, your family.
Yeah.
How do they respond to it? The same way you did?
Yeah.
or-
Primarily, you know what I mean? Like abantu abasondelene nabo were like, but then other people who maybe mhlambe singakaxoxi nabo for a while, you get phone calls, people are crying, are you okay? People that know the type of person that you are and who understand your character, especially based around the story, and people who I work with, colleagues, you know what I mean? Because that thing that post insinuated that in order for you to be playlisted on my show, a specialist show, I'm out here perpetrating this Ndefananades. So anybody who's anybody, from internally, people from programming, people that know that I haven't done my own show in years. So unless that's a really old story, or you know what I mean, like of something that happened, and as far back as it goes, when I was producing the show, I was producing it for somebody else. And then when I took over the reins, I brought people on to produce the show. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
So it's like it's people either had facts about what's going on and their reaction was the same as mine, and people who don't have facts were upset. Do you know what I mean? So it's and Babe Booza, nobody was out there saying how could you ganji. I think I had 2 people out ask me outwardly, Uguti, Fethu, my feelings on this is Uguti, ayenzakalanga ngale ndlela eshiwile umuntu le nto le. Can you confirm that for me? 2 incidents where people actually asked me. The rest of the people assumed I didn't do it, and low 5% assumed that I did.
Okay, let's bring in Mfokam Tabe. You're aware of the Durban Survivors List. You're also aware from what Ulab is saying that it may not be necessarily 100% correct.
Yeah.
That's his version,
Yeah.
his account of it. What do you think it does when a story like this breaks, or there's a platform where people are able to express where and how they've been abused, and then it becomes a bit fishy and not 100%? What does that do to the whole movement to say Yazin Buffett as Vigaleni abantu besifazane, because kunenswela boy running around in our backyard? What does that do to the movement?
So my thing is, when the first time I saw the page, I was like obviously in shock awe at sort of the guys who had appeared there, obviously knowing some of them and having probably met a couple of them as well. But as the days were going, and the guys being added on, I just had this feeling because, looking at guys like Uleb, looking at guys that I've worked with, I know that, these are good oaks. Some of them are fathers themselves, I doubt very much that they did something like that. To me, it took away from, it really gave that page, it actually did a huge injustice, in fact, to the scourge that we are experiencing as a country, which is femicide, rape, and all of those things that are associated with that. So it really took away from the authenticity of the real people who've been through the real situations. Now, once it does that for me, then it's 1, you look at the platform, 2, you look at the people behind it. What is it that they are really trying to achieve? Is this something that is deliberately put together to discredit certain people? because of certain reasons, or is it something that is actually real and is really happening? Now, for me, and having spoken to the guys in my circle as well, including my brothers as well. I mean, I've got 3 brothers who we spoke about this as well. I said to them, look, the way I see it is, yes, there are some people, some things that are happening. It's definitely happening, and it's the worst kind of thing that could happen to any human being. However, these guys popping up, people who are known to be good men, good gentlemen, leaders in society, people who contribute positively to society, being taken and being smeared and being put on pages like that so that somebody's end could be achieved or seen makes no sense for me, and it really takes away from what the movement is trying to achieve, what the page is trying to achieve, what good citizens, South Africans, are trying to achieve in terms of helping and fight the scourge that we're experiencing currently. It's so what do you trust? Do you trust the media, because obviously there's a whole lot of sensationalism and romanticized ideas there? Do you trust social media, something that anybody could edit and change and do whatever? What source do you trust? Do you have to then actually have a conversation with the lady to say ngempela sesiyenzekile yini le nto le? Which then also says umbuza lokho because I won't call her because you don't think it happened. So we find ourselves in a very unique and a very strange position, because we want to believe Uguti when the ladies report these kind of things, that this is what is happening to them, that it's real, but we can't now all of a sudden believe 100% that it's real, because now we need to interrogate having experienced what we have experienced now. So what happens to a next person, to a next lady who experiences this and says, guys, I've been raped, I've been abused, I've been do you take it at face value? Do you take it as something that has happened, given the fact that this is what is happening in our society? People are coming out with fake news. In the past couple of days, how many fake news stories have we heard? How many have we seen? Sure. We look at the xenophobia issue, for example, as an example in terms of fake news. There's so many things that we've been seeing as current, but it's happened either in another place, in another country, or in another time. Yes, it was part of something that was happening, but it was not happening now. People were using that and saying that is happening now. So I think, Nati, we need to find a mechanism. We need to find a something that we can, I don't want to say tick a box and say, right, is this happened? Yes. Does this happen? Yes. Yeah. And if 60% of that is achieved, then yes, then definitely this lady has gone through that. Okay. So it's really has taken away from the movement. That is the whole Me Too movement. That is, Am I Next movement and all of that. It definitely has. And the ladies who are reporting the incidents as real that have not happened are really also making sure that the realness of the situation is not being taken seriously.
Now, are you aware who's behind Durban Survivors? Because I read a tweet somewhere that said it's going to be taken down after a point. My information is that at some point it was anonymous. Does it make sense to be anonymous on something of this magnitude?
I was actually just thinking that, and I think that for me is the problem. Is that you can't have a name on one side and then not have a name in the beginning type of thing. So you can't have a faceless person saying something about someone specific and then not being able to trace that back and ascertain what actually happened or whatever the case is. So an anonymous tip about something happening, it's happening.
Sure.
But something that's happened, an anonymous tip about something that's happened and you can't ascertain who, and that person is the only one with the information as to how it went down or whatever the case is, it doesn't help then for the movement, for anything. It doesn't help just putting it out there and then, you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So for me, it's for me, I look at everything in terms of specific incidences. So I like to speak about specific things so we can ascertain what layers were at play, who was doing what happened where, the context of the situation, as to ascertain okay, my role within this context here is this, and this is what I should own.
Okay, let's role play. So Lab was on a list, right?
Sure.
Let's assume the allegation is true for the purposes of the discussion. Not only is it true, but you're aware. Njengomjit, how easy would it be for you to say, Yazini, I was there, he's my brother, but if it's wrong, something is wrong, it's wrong. Because that's the other leg of the problem, where a lot of people are coming out to say, Yazin, I was aware, but I turned a blind eye. And there's a lot of that happening. So to put yourself in that situation, that gets somebody on the list, and you're aware, but turn a blind eye, is it easy? Because if you're not solving the problem, then you're helping to perpetuate it. You're part of the problem. How real do you think that is an issue? Because at the end of the day, assuming people who are there for the right reasons, somebody knew, somebody's aware, but they turn a blind eye. The same way, Kune giving a look, and everybody turns a blind eye because that's the story. You know what I mean?
I don't know if
Sorry, can I just get him to
sure.
think through that scenario where you're aware, but because he's your boy, or I was again, period. What is your stance to being aware of a perpetrator but turn a blind eye because it's not your baby?
Aware that it did occur.
Yes. Because he is right now, you're aware. His name, and it says how? Mjita. Do you know anything? You're like, or you're like, Yazin, having thought about it. Because a lot of people are coming out now and saying retrospectively, this thing happened many years ago. The same way, if the alleged victim will come forward, then the guys who are part of the crew will say, hey, Yazin, we're aware and we're sorry, we apologize.
Yeah, I'm trying to place myself in that situation because I'm thinking, because then the next thing I'd have to question is maybe my character. In terms of
that's the question. Is like, does your character allow you to break brotherhood for purposes of truth and being a just man? Does your character allow you to do that, or is like, hey, to be honest, I'd love to be that guy, but I either haven't been that guy or I'm not that guy.
Yeah, I think my character would allow for me to break, because I think there's a line.
Yeah.
Like so there's different layers in terms of not to this specifically, but I'm saying if we're doing something, if he stole like a sweet type of thing, as a brother it would be like, it's a sweet, but there are certain things that like you have to sleep with at night and say it's ish. Like you're gonna sleep knowing that your friend or your boy or whatever the case is did this thing, and you're gonna probably even, and if you know he did that, you probably even know the person. Like, you know what I'm saying? So then you have to probably see that person and always has to ring back. So for me personally, I don't think I have that in me to like to know something like that and then just like keep quiet or not, because even then it would affect even my relationship with maybe like Umdu.
Yeah.
For instance, it wouldn't be a thing where you could sit with knowing, and then unless that's also what I participate in.
Okay, let me put it differently. Let's say, what would your message be to people who are failing that character test, but are aiding and abetting the situation by being silent? What would your message be to them right now? If we agree on the level of seriousness of this particular situation, if we all agree that we have a crisis and to solve the crisis, and this is wrong, this is a crime, this is the worst possible crime we can think of to our mothers, and wives and aunts and that kind of thing. What is your message right now to somebody who is failing the character test?
Yeah, I think it goes back to you can't play anonymous. Being anonymous, it doesn't help. Whether you sitting and you know when you're on the side, whether you saying, whether you're the person who's bringing it to light or whatever the case is, it's like you have to come forward, and then you also have to come forward with whatever you know and your experience. Yeah, because that's all we have. You hang around a different group of people, different parties, different scene, different generation, and all of those things, and what you've accumulated within that space is like your experience of how to engage with people, how to whatnot. So if I go through something, you can bring something to me and say, actually, Bafo. Yeah, but kunje. So it's the same thing, and that like in our own personal spaces, the only thing we can ever bring is like our personal experiences of what we've gone through and what we think. So with this specific scenario, I'd say if you're sitting with someone that you know who has done this for whatever the case is, for whatever reason, and it's literally not sitting well with you, because you come on uti like, how does it sit with you? I'm not talking about right or wrong. I'm talking about the individual. Yeah, because if I'm chilling with somebody and we're all cool with killing people, whether I know that he's killed somebody, whatever, if I'm cool with it like it's not going to do anything to me. Like, yeah, but if you're that person where it doesn't sit well, you have to come forward. You have to come forward.
Let's change direction slightly. Now, there's a thread that says men are being violent towards women, so-called gender-based violence, because they're unable to deal with their own issues of anger, of frustration, or whatever the case is. Would you agree that that contributes to a certain degree to the problem we're faced with right now?
I think it applies to everybody. Just
Sure.
I think generally men are built more physically able, stronger, bigger, you know what I mean, heavier. And if you take Umushino Njad from its infancy, from the factory, and you tell it, indoda ikhali, mfana akakhali, indoda iyenza. Do you know what I mean? There's something that you're neglecting in this machine that it carries, and that's its emotional capacity, where you're saying switch that part of your operating system. Ufocus again. Yeah, well, a man provides, a man works, a man does what he needs to do, a man makes a plan. Do you know what I mean? Fast forward 20 and 25 years, they're looking for a significant other.
Sure.
And there's certain emotional requirements now, you know, to cohabitate, to even live with this person. You understand? Sometimes, and I think it happens to a lot of guys, I need to go somewhere, I need to go shower more, drink. Like I can't be in the house. I can't be around, because women want to talk. They want to engage. Like, so how was your day? How do you feel? Unjani? Do you know what I mean? Thina sikhule sazi ukuthi mekunento engingazwani nayo nomjida, yabo, phila ngaphandle, ilungiso ngequpha, and iphelele lapho, handshakes, we go for drinks even afterwards. You understand that? And if I went to an old boys school, and that was the norm. Yabo, look, it's fine. Bashayene, bagcwaliselana, and it's done. It's finished. Do you know what I mean? All we need won't go back and be like, yeah, it won't be that. Like, it's done. That's how we sort it out. As boys, boxing clubs, jump into the ring. If you're caught fighting by a teacher or whatever, to a nena, end of the year, we want to see the boxing ring.
Even after school.
Even after school, we understand. So depending on what the situation is, right? So now we're now expected to sort of jump into these emotions now. Suddenly, the emotions that we don't have. Women are emotionally more mature than men. Understand? That battle you will lose all the time. You understand? That emotional maturity battle you will lose. You know, because
what's an example?
No, as in like they work through their feelings. They'll cry about it. They'll go, open up a bottle of wine, talk about it, and cry about it. Ghost. I have a tight circle of dudes who I'll go and say, as in, try that. I know, you're not done. Do you know what I mean? The how isn't being discussed, because angiti umwe outi you can't show signs of weakness. So in our world, if somebody's drumming that message into your head, clearly emotion is a weakness.
Pause there for a second. If you don't have emotional intelligence, is it not easy to go the route of restraint? Or is it the same thing?
I think it works hand in hand. restraint works with a certain level of emotional intelligence and vice versa. You know, because the way I see it is if you are in check with your emotions, for example, and you are able to express yourself, which I think is one of the things that Shama Chitaka cool, is how do I express myself when I'm feeling like this right now, you know, given the fact that my background is I think if you have an understanding of that yourself, you personally, as Ulwazi, I'm thinking to myself, you know what, and this is how I will engage, how I will react, how I will, you know, that kind of thing. I think that will lead me to a certain level of saying, you know what, hey, because maybe I'm empathizing, because I'm thinking, how could she possibly feel? Which I think is one of the things that is missing, especially when we're being brought up as boys, is you tend to you're not really taught how to empathize and put yourself in another person's shoe. You're taught to you know, you're not taught okay, what are the things in the peripheries that also I need to look out for and manage so that I don't react in a way that is socially undesirable. So I think it works hand in hand. Emotional intelligence really it gives you that ability to say, right, that's probably not the right way to do it. That's probably not the thing to do, you know.
Let's flip it for a second. So, Peter, there are no women on the panel. Want to role play? No. So there's also the argument that says there's nobody who can provoke you like a woman. Are they able to understand when they get to that point to say, hey, because to come to your point about how men have been brought up to use this to settle stuff, they know how to push your buttons.
To endure.
What would you say to that argument? That there's nobody who knows how to push your buttons?
It's facts. It's facts. It's facts. Like whether it's your mom, whether it's your girl, whether it's your wife, whether it's your ini, for me, I grew up with like no pops.
Yep.
Yeah, about any. So it's almost like a clean slate where you're sort of like learning the interactions between male and female, and you're always adding a layer to it. So like in varsity, my first understanding was that like women's emotions are fickle. For instance, like in varsity, you're chilling with 4 chicks, 5 chicks, or whatever the case is, but like what you'd find would see each chick will say they love you, right? Which made me think like, yo, they actually don't know me. I just happen to be the subject of whatever it is that they just happen to be the subject of that thing that they want.
Yep.
Yeah, but they don't know me. So it made me so then you grow, then you're like, okay, sharp. Then you in a serious relationship now, and then like you care for somebody and you whatnot, and she needs this emotionally, she needs that emotionally, and as soon as you give this piece here, when she knows it's okay, we're holding hands down the street, yeah, but clump, then she wants to be in a DP. You know, she wants to be like your profile picture. Then she wants to be your screensaver.
Next thing, the toothbrush.
Yeah, then she wants to be. Then she leaves the toothbrush at your place. Yeah, go in. Yeah, go. Like there's always that.
Very experienced.
Yeah,
so your buttons are pushed by the toothbrush.
No, but I'm just saying in terms of like in terms of what they want and ask from you, it's consistently it's always increasing. So and then they find ways of, when I do this, he does that, you know, and it's like, okay, as long as I can get that reaction, then it's fine. The moment I don't get that, if you get an indifferent reaction, like be indifferent, like being different, when she wants something being different, you use it. Your combination.
Because
exactly.
Yeah, because also you were saying men deal with things physically, whereas the story is that women, it's emotional.
Yeah.
So they'll fight you emotionally.
Yes.
And they'll beat
you don't know how
and they'll
to
beat you.
And they'll beat you.
Showcase.
And they'll beat
Showcase, I
you.
can
You'll
believe
lose.
that.
9 out of 10 times you'll lose that fight.
Yeah.
The only thing you can do is rationalize that emotion.
Yeah.
Because for me, above all else, is that like I've never wanted to be right, but I wanted to understand. So I've never wanted to be in a position where I'm in a circumstance, there's a side that I don't see. And like, I think this is the way it is, but there's a side that I don't see. So I've always, my emotions specifically, I developed a mechanism where I'd have to rationalize why I feel that way first. So I get the feeling, rationalize why it's there, then break it down to a principality, and then implement.
Uchida's got time on his hands.
Yeah,
but it's coming to the point of emotional intelligence forces you to pull back away from it.
Yeah,
it does.
Yeah. Now, unfortunately, there's that lesson that we seem to skip because they sit you down and let you know this is how it's going to be. This is what you need to do to keep the units together. Is it done for Tina, or we assume we know what it is we need to do?
For me, it's not about the assumption, right? It's about how you've dealt with your person and the situations that you've encountered and how you've navigated through those. Also the fact that when we speak about emotional intelligence, for example, me and Elami Timer told me, you just act like you just don't even know what you're talking about. Like you don't. What's this country? No one's going to tell because then that sort of takes to them. What it does to, it seems to the ladies, is how and then in a way that now it will be conducive to us to finding a solution if there was a problem, for example. You know, so it's a matter of to find a way how to deal with it, rather than to say or you're gonna, some guys they bad some guys just stand up and walk out. I'm one of those guys who sometimes I'm like, you know what, let's park it.
Sure.
Because right now you are dealing with an emotion I can't deal with. I don't know how to deal with.
When you don't want to deal with issues, say let's park it. I want to deal with it here and now.
No,
similarly, if we are pigger or
no, but the thing is, you have to then revisit that. You have to then go back, of which 9 times out of 10 I actually do say, right, listen, because the way you just came at me, was just unacceptable. But now that we're all calm, let's then talk about it. Then we'll talk about it and find a solution to whatever the problem is. But sometimes you actually just need to pull away. You actually need to move yourself away. And I think that's where, again, that emotional intelligence comes into say, excuse me, to say, look, I can't deal with this right now, because I'm in a space where, one, I'm not equipped to deal with it. Two, the emotion that is being presented here, I just don't understand it. I haven't grown up, or I haven't been taught how to deal with that kind of emotion. So maybe I need to go away, think about it, talk to a G, whatever. Find something that will give you then to actually be able to think about things, rationally.
Okay, you were talking about how guys protect and provide and If we change the priorities and say, let's deal with violence and how we handle anger. And assume the protect and provide, we know about it. Does that help the issue or not? Because he's talking about how you must know how to deal with your anger. You must first do an introspection before you go anywhere. Because if you deal with that, at least there's progress. Is that a sensible way or an approach that might put a dent in this fire that's raging?
I think it's not an absolute solution. Because I think there was an analogy from Muslu earlier on when we were chatting over Uti, how I think life or issues as a whole, I board, it's a zoo where there's a lot of ingredients that have been thrown into there. Mazamba, no anyanisi, you know what I mean? Stocky, nyama, all of that jazz, or carrots, So all of these things are a requirement in order for this meal to taste this way. If we keep zamban, short. If we keep carrots or if we keep low, keep anyanis, it won't taste the same. So that analogy for me, it resonated with the landscape of life as a whole, and relationships as a whole. Let's get it. Elementary, primary, and high school, you spend 12 years getting the fundamentals. And if umuntu oseke walithola ithuba to go to college, you understand ukuthi how easy high school is once you hit, like in retrospect, once you hit college and how difficult that is, and you understand how easy college was once you get into the work environment. You understand? So you need about, let's call it 20 years, including a degree or whatever, 17, 20 years, to get the education part right. Why aren't you spending the exact same amount of time on teaching people life skills, how to deal nomuntu, yabo? Patience, kindness, zonke lezo zinto lezo, you understand? Ukuthi, how do I approach a person? Explain that analogy of ukuthi I must treat my neighbor like how I want them to treat me, because those are just words to ingane that they can recite, you understand? And when we come to the relationship part as well, you won't get it right with your first girlfriend, nor your second, or your boyfriend, or whatever it is. It's something that needs or requires you to work on. And then you get to an individual that you resonate with. You know, nobabili niyazwana, I see myself having a future with this person. And then the feeling or the love is the beginning of the conversation, right? And it makes up about 10% of everything. And understanding 90%, what does this 90% look like? You know, the amount of time you spend with them. A woman will sit there and prod and like figure out how you tick emotionally and push your buttons here gently, just to see how you react. Do you know what I mean? Like and test you out. I'm not saying it should be a constant test, but spend the time learning each other. If you're interested in somebody, do you know what I mean? Like that much. Spend the time and they need to reciprocate.
Because it's an investment that will pay off in the long run.
Exactly. They need to reciprocate. Now and now we are cool. Like I used to be very short with dealing with problems or challenges or whatever. That would wander into our space. Like I would get up and you know what I mean? Like you're leaving this vicinity now. Kwanja, Masha. Do you know what I mean? Like and then it spills over into your relationship as well, where it's like you're faced with something and it's like and then it's like chop. We understand that you can't do that with your significant other.
Let's look at a situation, something you touched on, that how about we spend time teaching ourselves how to respect the next person? Whose responsibility is that? Specifically to guys.
And what do you mean?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. He says that what we need to do to try and deal with this scourge is that we need to empower ourselves emotionally out of respect. No because I think his analogy, if I'm following correctly, is that you need the time to invest how you treat other people, how you treat, how you behave as a couple, and also just you as an individual. So the issue becomes, as men, who should invest the time teaching us those skills? You think? Because the point then becomes if we work out whose responsibility it is that happening? How can we empower that person or people to do their job?
I'm thinking like, okay, so I'm thinking
If
you take him to he's done this thing, his whole journey, whatnot, self journey, doing all of these things now. I'm thinking there's also fundamentals which you get from home, fundamentals which you get from just your upbringing in terms of how you approach. Because before you even get to women and men and whatever the case is, it's just a person. How you respect umuntu and whatever, and then you build on those fundamentals and whatnot. So it's like I'd have to take into account maybe how a person is brought up. So you also find which level you find him at, his circumstances, etc. Then you get a gauge of what he's processing, for instance, and maybe things that he either was exposed to or not exposed to. Because whether it's a female going through trauma at a young age, there's probably also a male who goes through trauma at a young age, and it manifests. They develop in a certain way as a result of certain things that they experience. So there's no.
It's not an easy question.
The
point about it is that we need to get to a point to, if the traditional systems
Sure.
that are in place
Sure.
are not working. Let's add the science. Call it Western, call it whatever. If kudingakala ukuthi emphakathini kube nama-social worker to come in and say, where are we, what are we doing? Because what happens is, if that doesn't happen, then what happens is you get your kids, you farm them off to the education system and hope they will come out okay.
Sort them out.
And then at school they say, you bring us damaged goods already. We can't
Yeah.
fix this. We can do academics, we don't do life skills. Okay, it's on the curriculum, but it's theory.
Yeah.
You got to practice it at home.
Yeah.
You see, so that's what I'm trying to get the conversation to say, the system that we know that we were brought under, is it working? Are the people who are supposed to inculcate this in us aware what it is they should be doing or shouldn't be doing? And then just as a curveball, how big is the problem, or is it just now being highlighted because of social media? Because some might argue that actually the stats haven't changed that much. It's just more
All the
away.
time.
But that doesn't take away the fact that we need to address it.
Yeah.
But let's go back in steps. Ukuthi, as far as you know, if we have the traditional family unit that's supposed to do the job, hallelujah. But then a situation like you, where, for example, you say child-headed households, or ubaba angmazi, or uma angmazi, then it means then, should we say it's the role of the man? Is the role of the traditional village? Or what? Let's examine the structure that is meant to do the things that we were taking for granted, but clearly we missed something.
I would say that, you know, it is the responsibility of the family unit in whatever sort of form it takes.
Yep.
To say, because that's sort of your first socialization, your first interaction is with your family, your immediate family, you know. So they should really set the tone for the rest of your life and, you know, the lessons that you'll take on board. And then things like education, eskoleni, it should supplement already what you have learned from the family unit. Now, for example, Tina Abantu, we grew up as a umfowethu ukuthi ukhule ubaba engekho. But bebekhona omalume, you know, for example, you know, what role do they play? Then they should play that role to say, this is our responsibility to raise this young man to be the good man that he should be, to be, you know, a leader of society, and. For me, I grew up in the traditional family, nucleus family, as you would have it. You know, the roles and responsibilities, you know, for example, Uma would say on a Saturday, would say, so we'd wake up and wash dishes, you know, we'd wake up and clean, we'd wake up and do this. Then on another day, my father would be like, right, you know, that kind of thing. So that, I think, then helps create, you know, a well-rounded individual, if we can say that. However, there is society, there is, you leave your house, that kind of thing. Then you learn kind of different things. That doesn't mean take all of that, then apply it to yourself. It means then understand, this is what is out there, and this is how then I should react in certain situations. In essence, I think the family unit is really responsible for, you know, giving this guy or this girl the tools to say, right, now when I go out into the world, I'm going to experience certain things, but this is not the actions of a good man or the actions of a good woman. Therefore, I shouldn't be doing something like that. Then it being supplemented by, you know, the governmental programs, educational programs like your life orientation and so on. That should then say, oh, actually, like basically just emphasis as to, you know, lento oyifundi lekhaya, yiyona lesikhuluma ngayo. You know, now, and this is then how you grow and then how you socialize.
Is there an argument that will say that that's a nice idea, but if we leave it to everybody else, that's just playing lotto? Is there an intervention that we can take in, whether it's uhulumeni to say, Yazin, this thing is so bad, we will come knocking on every household emzansi to make sure that we deal with this thing decisively?
I think that's an unrealistic absolute. First and foremost, baning abantu. If you look at the ratio of person to policeman, or even worse, government official to person, you understand that? It's pretty much like the classroom, but in a classroom, it's classroom style. Slays one behind the other or one next to the other, and the common goal is the chalkboard. And it's a pambil. So we're all here doing the exact same thing. if you were to take the classroom and try and emulate life, there'd be people walking in and out constantly, talking, doing this, that are actually doing what they're supposed to be doing here. You understand? These are people from all different walks of life, right? So, in my opinion, based on indlela umuntu akhula ngayo, people that came out on the other side of this life thing, okay, you know, and maybe didn't fall victim to istrati or, you know, abusive relationships, staying in those, you know, both male and female, were people that had disciplines. When I say disciplines, a mate of mine said, I've got 2 daughters. Said, to the best thing, based on indlela khula ngayo, no sisbak and all of that, what's the time I'm in Alati, all my sisters are going to do sports, they're going to have something to latch on to. That's going to be their discipline. That's something that they're going to focus on. Yeah, Navella, he's athletic, so it's a no-brainer for him. Whether you like Leo discipline, it could be an instrument, you know, after school you're going for classes, you're doing this, or there's a sport that you're playing, or you never taught me. The only thing you're thinking of is ukudla, or ukudla, do your homework, you understand?
Sure.
There's a routine that's built into it for you. But it's idle hands, you understand? We know what idle hands can do. Siyabazi all over. Chirasi, Blomasi, looking at everybody that's coming in and out, and that's their discipline.
Sure.
It's what the next person is doing. You understand? Just like shorties who don't have much going on, who wait for that phone call or that WhatsApp from his banban, or whatever it is. That's a breeding ground for his dizzy coast. So if me growing up, I knew what's primary school sihlala AA, ngasedladleni go 3, kune ground izansi, I have that option. Or nge-main road ngigibele, sihlanu ngiyoshaya ukarati phezulu, sihlanu back home, you understand? I've got something I'm doing. I'm constantly running on there's something to do. Udlala ibhola, ngiyagijima, there's basketball courts, there's netball, you understand? And I feel that if there's anything that government can do is focus on that stuff. All the extramural stuff, because the era we grew up in, like there was something to do though. Once there's a vacuum and the playground is social media and TV games and whatever it is, and nothing that gets the blood going, and you're not getting rid of this energy, because it'll then develop into something else. So as long as there are no disciplines, as long as the government is letting things get run down, there's no maintenance, or masbala nani, those things will die.
Sure.
There won't be any parks. You know what I mean? It'll deteriorate until it's no longer there, and people will have nothing to do with their time except to banaga, and that's a breeding ground for predators, for people to you know what I mean? Like to do really weird things, and for teenage pregnancies. And like just now this is what we're getting into. Immediately that relationship is abusive from the get go.
Okay, gentlemen, we're going to wrap it up in a couple of minutes. Just a thought from me, from your reading of the situation. No, not you. You're too academic for me. From your reading of the situation, the perpetrators that have been named, alleged perpetrators and known perpetrators, have they been seen to be committing acts of abuse with their partners or people they just met via hookup? Because what I'm trying to get to is it abuse within relationships or in people that are not their significant others? And what does that say?
What I noticed is that it seemed that it was mainly amachita ahlangane nje nengane mhlambe, you know, eklabini, for example. But it also seemed that it was, some of them, it was people who were in some sort of relationship, where there's a situationship, as others would call it, but there was some sort of and I think it's quite hectic, you know, whichever angle you look at it, because especially if Bengazan, in fact, I think it's worse, Umanazana. You know, and then so when I was looking at, you know, what the ladies were saying, I didn't there were few who said I was in a relationship with this guy. You know, most of, you know, we were out with the girls, they offered us drinks, they took us to their place, but Koni morning bangi, how, you know, that kind of thing. So quite a few posts. I think I read about 2 or 3 that said we were in a relationship, you know, and Wenza isn't you know, but we were together. And then most of them though were like, no, sahlangana nje, or maz, you offered me a drink, or offered me muhambisa, or offered, you know, some sort of a convenience. So yeah, I don't know. I think we found that Wami is exactly that. Very few, if there were any about who were like in like relationships the way I saw it, you know, about a tandan house, a tandan, on a specific day, you know. Yeah, I know
because we do get some of those stories of women who've endured abuse in their marriage and have just kept quiet because that's what you do.
Too big as that.
See what I mean? So if ndosifazana abegeze nkosikazi abegeze, what is your role as a guy? It goes silent. But well, we won't solve everything in a day, but I think to keep the conversation going, as I always say, as long as the conversation doesn't remain just a conversation, because that's just a talk shop when you know, our sisters and mothers are dying out.
They're suffering.
So I'll just ask of you to just wrap it up by saying, in a minute or so, where should a guy go when he has all that pent up frustration and rage? Is there a system where he does it? I know we have referred to a circle, but we take it lightly. That if you're thinking to deal with it. He was talking about how in the good old days I'm Moya and I'm able to do that. Or are there structures that you know where a guy would go where there isn't a stigma
I think actually the thing that you were saying put like a light bulb on in terms of like the importance of just doing something, just being involved, immerse yourself in something where because you may not realize that you're not getting because sometimes you're idle, you're not receiving. There's something that you're supposed to be doing better, because I mean we're human, so we do things first and then think later. So you're not getting something, and then maybe you try to find that in a relationship, and then when you don't find it, and then you really, because relationships are toxic, right? You really need to be like, for my idea of like I think relationships are toxic just in general, but you need two sound people to come together and then sort of like sift through it, like you know what I'm saying. So if you getting that stability from a relationship, it becomes that much harder for you to navigate that toxicity within a relationship.
Because some people get into a relationship hoping the relationship will help them from themselves.
Exactly.
Yes.
Like exactly.
Yes.
About it. So I would think like maybe the first thing is like, if you don't have people to talk to or whatever the case is, like people that you can be open with and honest with or whatever, maybe just like how you say, like immerse yourself in like something positive, like do something, and then you realize when you're doing that thing, you become someone, like you become like in a way
a better person.
You become a better person, but yeah, I think that's just in a practical sense, for a practical example,
There's a sad case of Wanam Tag. He's an MMA fighter. Wash Zami Robert Lape Bridge City.
Oh yes. I remember seeing this.
Oh
one.
yes.
Yeah, he had a discipline of sorts. It didn't work for him. But anyway, just it's a side point, and the reason why I bring that up is that that's all well and good, but then that what that does is it deals with your time, but doesn't deal with your core issue of frustration, because you may move from that discipline into a relationship, but get into the relationship with unresolved issues, which are just waiting for the trigger. Just waiting for the trigger. Then it becomes you are disciplined, but you haven't resolved the issues. So it comes back to once again me asking the question: where is the safety net for guys to deal with the frustrations and rage and is there such a thing, or is it down to? Because I think the dangerous option for me is to say we must fix ourselves because we have proven that we are failing. So how do we help ourselves to help ourselves from ourselves?
I think firstly to address leya lo mjitelo MMA.
Yeah.
Khona ukuthanda izinto
Sure.
as well. And that also gets us into trouble because the discipline is there and why do MMA? But MMA, in as much as it's a discipline, it's supposed to take up a portion of your time, but then the rest of it, you spend 2-3 hours at gym, getting your ass kicked, releasing all this energy and this toxic energy, and then you get out into the world, and depending on your perceptions of the world, depending on your perceptions, and you look at the pressures that you have, the reason for go and stick up a money car is tolimali for whatever life that you feel that you deserve, right? The same reason why you go out to go and get a job. You understand? You have a more quote-unquote realistic view of the world, and you understand save there, they must buy a house, they must have a good clean rent. So if you aren't willing to do that, either or you lack that discipline. Now, to speak to that thing of to go and do this, to go and either release this energy. Again, life is slightly more complex than that. There's no dump site for bad energy or for bad emotions where you can go. Some might argue and say with a sporting or where people go there. People will go there to get away from their home situation or to run away from their responsibilities and go drink with people that are as inebriated as them or people that won't judge them.
Sure.
The most gossip that happens in my bar. You understand? But because it's a way of now saying we'll take my insecurities or my shortcomings are not as bad as our lives. You understand? So we go there. It's a warped mirror. It's like walking into those mirror holes where you either look too short or too tall or too fat or whatever it is. So finding the right place. You can't choose family, but you sure as hell can choose a friend, and you sure as hell can choose a spouse.
Yeah.
You understand? Or somebody that you are with in life. And I always have these arguments with guys. Namachita food. Stop dating out of convenience. Everyone that dates out of convenience or that marries out of convenience in my life, bar none, falls short or comes up short. Either they're in loveless marriages or relationships, or they're miserable. So you because you were looking good that day and he made the effort to he doesn't know what to do with you beyond looking at you and appreciating your aesthetic. And you guys don't fulfill each other emotionally. So as look, touch, feel, taste, and hear, you need to fulfill zonke lezinto lezi. The person that you are with, their aesthetic is the sales pitch. We have understand that if a guy approaches you, if you're a girl, cologne game is right, whatever it is, they've sold you this. And then the next thing is hello, if we can't talk here, number.
Sure.
And if and you are genuinely looking for the conversation, you're not just using the conversation as a segue to whatever it is that you're trying to get to. Either you're trying to get laid in either direction. But it's like, I'm actually genuinely interested in this person. And you're not doing things again out of convenience. Or she's got a fat ass or whatever it is. And that's all you want. But you are actually making the efforts and they make you feel good. The odd compliments or how they view life. Isn't they fun analysis? Because understand? Now you're in love with that. Like, and it goes both ways now. Like I didn't blow and you go breakfast splashing in the loot or there's a mug and pin of six. So breakfast. Cool. Insecurities, all of that out there. Put that there. and understand that person. Yeah, but be interested in that person. Now would be interesting.